if this guy can do it, I can do it. It just took me 8 months to do it. But then I was like, oh, wow. And I think ever since then, I was chasing that high after saying hi to that girl and not absolutely, not disappearing into dust.
This is Hanging Out with Hamza. It's a passion project about passions and projects, where I interview some of the most interesting people in my life and learn about the things that they love. Thanks for tuning in. In this episode, I have Shawn of Effortlessly Dating. Join me as we talk about his journey after leaving his 9-to-5, taking dating out of the apps, and what it takes to be a dating coach. All right, guys, welcome to Hanging Out with Hamza. Today, I have a special guest that I met through Desnudo, which if you guys listened to the last episode, they're an amazing coffee company that has garnered a really amazing community through it. And one example of that is this guy sitting next to me. His name is Shawn. He is a dating coach that has kind of approached this new career in his life to help men gain that confidence and ability to start talking to and dating women in a more confident way. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Shawn so he can better explain that for me.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me here. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head, honestly. My dating service is called Effortlessly Dating. And kind of with that, I feel it's honestly like a privilege to live in a world and where we're so free to do whatever we want. People are so open, especially in Austin. But one thing I've noticed for myself and just in general for men is that they see it as a really big chore and a huge task, and they quit, right? And they give up on the whole task. And I wanted to build a system for myself, first and foremost, to make dating less scary and effortless. It's rather than just approaching 100 girls at the store and different things like that. It's great. That's amazing if you can do that, and I highly suggest anyone to do that. But how do I build a life where dating almost comes to me, whether that's through connections, through friends, and different things like that? So I really try to personalize and help when I do that for myself and my clients before quitting and giving up on on dating entirely.
Obviously, this podcast is about passions and passion projects, and I firmly believe that the reason people do the things that you're doing is because they're passionate about it, and sometimes you risk a lot of your personal finances, your lifestyle, your career, in all these situations because of something that you're passionate about. And very few people do it, which is what I admire about you and a lot of people that I've had on this podcast. So I wanted to go into that part of your life and how you kind of directed it into this and what you were doing before this.
Yeah.
And along with what you were feeling that really pushed you to do this, because I think a lot of people might be in your position where they're doing something they're not happy with.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I guess my background, I came from finance, and it was brutal. Like when I'm at Dakota, I was in the middle of it during COVID. I got laid off and stuff, but I kept going, and I was working from 9 to 9 basically every day on average, and that was like my finance bro era. And Dakota at the time was a night shift nurse, so for a year almost sincere, and I didn't get any recognition from the work and any of this stuff, and I just felt like I was just, it's the same thing. It's like, what are your bosses? You're going to be your boss's boss in like 5 years, right? Trajectory. And this person's still wearing a suit going to the office. I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So I made the leap finding a tech job in Austin, like operations, and the company went bankrupt. And so I was kind of like stuck between, I could find another thing, right? That's fine. Or I can take the risk, right? My parents, my family, I love them to death. I wouldn't be here without them. But they obviously wanted me to just get another job. It's fine, right? But I know myself 10 years in the future would regret it.
Yeah.
Right. So in a weird way, I wanted to be the best example I could be for my future kids almost. And I do a lot of things for that reason, right? It's just I want to be the best role model for my kid.
Yeah.
I don't even have, which I'll have in the future. So that's what drove me to do it. Just take the leap, because I want to be able to tell people, just even if you do it on the side, let's say you're really passionate about something, I don't care. You could be a soccer coach, or you could be a streamer, right? you can have your job, do it on the side until it gets to a point where you can like replaces your income. And I'm not saying like, I'm doing super well or anything, but it's like, that's
Figure it
just how
out.
you start.
Yeah.
You're significantly happier, and you taking that risk, a big risk early on, allows you to take kind of smaller, sequential risks later in life that are like, I started my company, man.
Yeah.
I can do this thing. I can start this new diet, start this
Yeah.
new whatever, right?
And
So
it's
it's
kind of
like
like Juan said, it's like if you fail, you just continue on.
you can always go back to your job.
Yeah.
That's just the truth.
Okay. I think there's a certain taboo that you probably come across that I grew up on this in the YouTube generation where there were those like dating advice guys and those like how to pick up women and how to like
Yeah.
do this, how to pull women. And it honestly had a very negative connotation, in my opinion. It was a very like misogynistic, douchey approach where it was always kind of like, get the hottest woman out of your league and like how to pick her up. And like you'd watch these videos and they would say the most ridiculous stuff. And obviously half of them were actors. And it was just a very like, it was just not a great time for that kind of aspect. So when I first was introduced to you at a birthday party and you told me that, obviously my initial reaction was that. And
Yeah.
as I got to speak to you more and kind of hear your insight about it, as you said, it's like you're looking at it from giving men confidence in a healthy way, like, you know, gaining that confidence in themselves to approach women and believe in themselves to the extent that they can do that, but not have cockiness, like a difference between confidence and cockiness. And I think that was really cool because, you know, the whole idea of it for you is not to pull as many women as you can, but to find the right person that aligns with you and matches your ability. So I wanted to clarify that for anybody listening, to not think what I initially thought.
Yeah.
But I think that is an important thing, and I'm sure that's something you maybe have come across. Or I don't know if that's the first time you've heard that.
Yeah. No. That's definitely so. It's funny you say the YouTube generation because that's kind of where it started for me, right? Like I feel like most men go through this. Like us being immigrants, I never felt like it was just insecurity. It started with insecurity. I never felt enough. I was bullied and shunned from my group that I was originally friends with, and then went to YouTube. Right when YouTube was kind of at its peak, I would never watch TV. All I did was watch YouTube.
Yeah, same.
But then once you're like, at that age, like hormones kicking, like I need to talk to my crush. So that's kind of where it started for me. But yeah, the perception you have is correct, right? But also for me, that's also where it started. So I learned a lot. It started off with like, how do I talk to my crush? Then I went to like pickup lines and different things like that, which was super beneficial. I think it was beneficial at the time. Nowadays, if you do that now, the world's a little bit different in a lot of ways. So it really formed just my base confidence of how to walk up to a girl. And it took me, we'll get into this, but it took me 6 months to get, I think, no, over 6 months to just gain the courage to go up to my crush and just like say 15 words.
Yeah.
And I knew this person. We saw this person every single day. We weren't really friends. And, after watching hundreds of these YouTube videos of like, obviously guys going up to actors or different things like that, I was like, I can do that. I just kind of like put myself and say, no, if this guy can do it, I can do it. It just took me 8 months to do it. But then I was like, oh, wow. And I think ever since then, I was chasing that high after saying hi to that girl and not absolutely, not disappearing into dust, right? Like that's what everybody fears. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna get rejected. And
Yeah.
so nothing happened to me. I went to class. Right after that was the best moment of my life.
Yeah. I think the immigrant thing is for sure something I relate to because, growing in high school, I never had a girlfriend in high school and I never thought I would have a girlfriend in general. But yeah, except for the fact that this is not a part of my ability and I just kind of took it as that. And so it wasn't until college that I even gained the confidence to like start talking to people or, even approaching women because I just always thought I would be in the friend zone. I remember when we talked earlier, you kind of brought up how you took this on as like a personal challenge. And so you would at one point just go to bars and just talk to women without any intention of anything further than just developing the skill and kind of like honing down on it. And so do you want to kind of delve further into that and how you went through that whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to start off with, same thing. College was I guess my formative years and my social experience. And I'll touch on this, but like I was in I went to University of Texas at Dallas, so not a huge school, but I loved my college experience. I joined a fraternity. For me, that was kind of like the starting point of seeing like how being social is significantly more beneficial than walking up to hundreds of girls, and I still did it on campus. Like I was like well known for, being that guy that does walk up to people. And that was fine. I was pretty shameless and still am. But yeah, so I spent, I think I recorded some of this, like almost hundreds to close to 1,000 hours of just me going out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single day pretty much. Especially Mondays to Wednesdays, because that's when the people that worked, that when you go out at bars, the people that are working, serving you drinks, whatever, they're the ones that they need off time too. So they're going out on the weekdays. Different type of lifestyle. But I was like, where are all these super attractive bottle girls and all this stuff? And then through some research and talking to people, I was like, oh, they're out on weekdays. So I spent a lot of time just doing that, right? I was like, let me take a back step to truly answer your question. All I knew was like I was super insecure and I wanted to change. I just like, there was like an urge and itch in my body. I was like, if I didn't talk to that girl, regret, the feeling of regret, and that killed me more than anything else, more than like getting a bad grade, disappointing my parents. And I was like, this is really pissing me off. So that's what drove me to like, let me figure this out. So that was the beginning. And then I would go out and just go out to bars, try to talk to girls, get rejected. The only thing I have over anybody else is thousands and thousands of rejections that I can remember most. I can tell you every story pretty much. And I'm still here, still alive. But then eventually it kind of just became exhausting, like most things, right? Like it's like going to the gym, doing the same workout every single day. You're bored. You're just like, okay, I've got numbers. Most of them didn't convert. Some did, great. But it's like, this is exhausting. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't feel like I'm going to meet my wife or mother of my children like that. So then I kind of tried looking at people that are actually what I found successful in the dating world, aka like they're either in good relationships or, when I was younger, like the fuck boys, right? Like what makes them, so how are they surrounding themselves with women? How are they just dating multiple women? So I wanted to kind of embody that and understand like, okay, I'm not a douche. I don't want to be like an asshole, but how can I build that? Like, this guy's not any better than me. His grades are really bad. Like, what the hell, man? Why are these? Like, that's how I thought. So, and then I understood it's just they build an environment naturally. So maybe it's like they're a cool kid in high school. But what does that mean? So I just kind of peel back the onion to understand it's like they built an ecosystem where they're just social. Everybody knew them. They knew everybody. They were the cool kid in school. Everybody loved them. So girls kind of notice that. And I think that's just biology. I'm like, you don't need to be 6'5", blue eyes in finance, right? Like the whole meme that's going on, to achieve that. So I really wanted to build that for myself, and I did. But that's kind of the arc, my storyline, so to speak.
Okay. So I guess, I mean, this is me speaking from a personal standpoint, but when approaching a girl or kind of having that initial thought process of like, can I approach this person? There is that insecurity that comes with it. Is like, is she into like me in terms of like physical appearance, like background, all that kind of stuff? And you mentioned that, none of that matters. You don't have to be 6'5", or you don't have to be this or that. So let's say you're like on the lowest of all of those steps.
Yeah.
Like, you believe that even with that, you still have a chance. And it all comes down to confidence and being able to approach them. That's what kind of sets you apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so it's honestly just math, right? So let's say, I'm just going to put a scenario here. Let's say you're 5'6", 5'7", whatever, right? Let's say you're Indian, 5'6" guy that has a normal job, whatever, and really like brunettes with freckles, right? I'm one thing I'll say is like, I want men to be pretty. I know people are like, I don't have a type, but for me, it made it really easy just to have like, I like this, and I don't care why, I just do. So
like, there's no taboo behind.
There's a correct. There's like, who cares? Like, if you like African American girls, you're like, I'm not just talking about physical looks. I'm talking about just like, I want to go to the rock climbs. Ride bike, whatever, right? So it's like, be clear on what you want first and foremost. But let's say you're a guy on the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak. You have to ask yourself, where am I going to succeed? Just like anything else in life, like, what am I good at, right? If you're good at numbers, you're going to go, you might not love accounting, but you might be damn good at it, right? Something like that. So it's like, okay, dating apps might not be for you. Let's just be real with yourself. And like, if you've probably done some experimenting, not getting many matches and stuff like that, and that's okay. Those dating apps are made for specific archetypes. You can ask any data scientist that works at any of those apps, they'll tell you the same thing. And also, what I would say for someone like that is, one, figure out what you're good at. And then also, you can kind of reverse engineer what people have done to be successful in dating. If you ask most attractive women where they've met their husband, past boyfriends, exes and stuff, oh, the friend of a friend, I met him at a party that my friend hosted, things like that. So it's like, I can put myself in you can be invited to a party. You can be friends with anybody. No one's going to especially in Austin, no one's going to care if you're 5'5", whatever. Like, people here are really friendly, right? If you're in a city that is like racist or something, get out of there. That's just fact. Yeah. So what I would do if I was in that situation, and what I did is first thing I forgot about, just took dating out of the table.
All right. So I want to put a scenario up for you. Let's say you're just an average by numbers guy, like you're 5'6", have an average job. You're not like, the top of any kind of totem pole. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to approach your method of approaching women.
Yeah.
What is your standard of advice in those situations?
Okay. So this is a hot take. I actually would, for the first month, let's say there's a new person in Austin or whatever city, forget about dating. Like, I know it's like crazy to hear, but like the first month after you hear this, forget about dating. What I want you to do, what I did, is I really focused on making female friends. And what I mean by that is, like, there's a big difference between making female friends and getting friend zoned, right? When you're making female friends, you don't need anything from them.
There's no expectation.
Correct. And when most men, hear female friends or whatever, they think you're just kind of being a cock or you're being friend zoned. No, there's a big difference. You're friend zoning them in a beneficial way, a respectful way.
Yeah.
What I would do, I don't care how tall you are, whatever. You're 5'6", you work at Verizon or something, and whatever. I don't care how much money you make.
No offense to Verizon.
Huh? No offense to the Verizon guys. I don't know where that came from, but I would become a regular at your favorite spot. I don't care if it's a coffee shop, restaurant, whatever, right? Like, whatever time you have, get to know the staff. Become a guy that's able to socialize with anybody. I'd say that's the biggest skill. And then, for the first month, you can meet a person every single day and like genuinely try to like ask questions. Hey, I'm new to the city, new to this part of the city. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Just, how to hold a conversation. And I feel like art of the conversation is also being lost a bit. So that's also what I try to help people with. But if you can just kind of make friends, Austin's a very easy place to make friends. People are very willing to invite people. And once you get, let's say invited to a birthday party or, a cold plunge thing or run club, you're in an environment where you're the weird one if you're not social, right? So let's say you invited me to a run club, right? And you're, hey, I'm doing this thing, come meet my friend, right? Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I met one of your female friends and her friend and her other friend and her other friend. And I hit it off with one of them, right? That's how a lot of like cool people, I use the word cool pretty loosely, but like attractive women meet their husbands, their boyfriends, whatever. So it's like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Just reverse engineer how in your head a successful dating life looks like. And if that means getting an awesome girlfriend that supports you, etc., most of the times you don't need to try that hard.
Yeah.
It's not like doing cold approach to walk up to girls and making it hard on yourself. Again, it's like making it a bit effortless.
Okay. So it's basically like law of averages and friend of a friend kind of rule.
Yeah, I feel like
you're just building connections and going through those connections that establish more connections.
Exactly.
Okay, good to know. And then in terms of dating apps, what's your stance on that? Because I feel like a lot of your dating approach that we've talked about, it seems to be a lot of in-person interaction.
Yeah.
As somebody who's been through dating apps and has had, negative and positive, I feel like for the most part it's been negative experiences, just because I'll tell you my kind of
I love it.
I feel like with dating apps, there's obviously the superficiality of it is like you're just looking at photos and you're looking at 3 or 4 prompts that this person has put. and you're creating an entire idea of who this person is, right? And then you decide whether you like them or not just through a swipe. And I think that kind of removes this little personal touch. And then on top of that, once you do match with that person, 50% of the time it's a validation game where they just like to be liked and they'll never talk, or you will talk to them and it can just start to fizzle out. That's
Yeah.
maybe 25%, and then the other 25% you develop an actual conversation that can last 2 to 3 days and then eventually a date.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, I feel like by those numbers you can see like a majority of it are negative interactions or just like things that can kind of really affect your like outlook on dating
Yeah.
and lose hope in it. And I think a lot of girls already have that, and a lot of people in general. I read somewhere that online dating is starting to fizzle out. Like people are just starting to really be detracted by it. So what's your perspective on online dating, and why do you feel like approaching people in person now is more important than ever?
Yeah. So from what I've noticed, I mean, it's a great question. From what I've noticed, actually, especially in the city of Austin, I can only speak on Austin because we live here, but I think people are opting out of a lot of dating apps because they're just not seeing success. They're not seeing what they want, and they're like, they're also, I respect to all these people, to everybody, because they're putting themselves out there. They're like, I'm going to run club. I'm going to go to cold plunge. I'm going to go to yoga, all this stuff. At the very minimum, that's like the baseline. They're going, okay, I did my work. All the guys come to me.
Right.
Great. That's how I feel it should be. And that's how it was in the 60s, 50s, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So dating apps, I never really found success. I'm not a good looking guy like you, Hamza. But I to be honest, like I tried really hard on the photos, all this stuff, and I think there is definitely an art, like just having good Instagram, showing people you're social, you have a bit of a life, you have hobbies. It's awesome. But if you're not good looking, it's not going to be better. You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something for fun you can do while you're using the toilet, but I would say for most people, and really when I say most people, it's like 90% of the people. Only like the statistic is, I think it's 10% of the men on dating apps that are getting 80% of the matches. So if you're this 5'6" guy that works at Verizon, right? Look at your odds.
Yeah.
Like look at the time you're spending if you have Hinge Pro or whatever, Hinge X.
Yeah.
Like I would ask myself, am I using my time? Am I optimized?
Investment.
Correct. Instead, I can just go outside for the first month and just like make friends, and then like, hey, if I see a pretty girl, you're so used to, kind of side tangent, but like you're so used to like hanging out with females in general, just like, oh, I go to yoga with my friends every Thursday. I do this. I have a party this weekend. So like I'm accustomed to being around pretty women. Awesome. You're not going to be afraid of the girl at the coffee shop. You might be a little nervous. Everybody is, even me, whatever. You're going to go say hi. You're going to be like, hey, I love your shoes. What's up? And that feeling of, getting the phone number, even that person saying, oh, thank you so much, and having that 5-minute conversation is, to me, so much more valuable than getting a match on a dating app and it not panning out somewhere.
Yeah. I think the other thing I've realized is just even after the conversations we've had, I brought it up with a lot of like the female friends I have.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have said the same thing. They've said the same thing in the past. Is like, I would love for a guy to approach me in public, or, approach me. Even if I was with someone, I wouldn't take offense to it or anything. It would be flattering, just because it would be nice knowing that, this person liked me enough to build that confidence and approach me. And I asked them, I was like, what if they're not your type, or blah, 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 this or that would go against like their standards of who they would date. They're like, yeah, but it kind of puts them at a certain advantage because I'm not used to that. So that never happens. And so it's like you said, it just like you putting yourself out there has already put you at an advantage above others.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, like, again, my thought process from this is that I never approach women in public for many reasons. One is like I'm super shy. I am for the most part pretty introverted. But on top of that, I always feel like I don't want to intrude on the female space or, their environment wherever they're at. So for instance, I see them on their laptop, or they're with their friends, or they're, doing work or something. I never want to intrude on their space, or I feel like I'm interrupting their personal time.
Yeah.
So I create these excuses in my head. I realize that is an excuse. And I brought that up with females too. And I was like, hey, what if like, I'm scared that I'm going to interrupt their day or do this or that. And I'm also scared because a lot of the female friends that I talk to, the stories that I do hear about when a guy's approached them in public or done this or that, it's usually not a great story. It's usually like the guy was creepy or he said this or that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of internalized in me is like, I don't want to be that creepy guy in the stories. Um, so I think that might be a reason a lot of guys don't do it in public. Is there any
Yeah.
other reason you hear from the guys that you work with about why they don't do it or how to work through those kinds of fears and excuses?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, those are most people's fears. Like, I don't feel like, I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm bothering them. And
I don't want to be creepy.
her friends there. I don't want to, be rude
Yeah.
type of stuff. And absolutely valid.
Yeah.
Like, you have social awareness. Good job.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's like, but I think, don't get me wrong. it- Even for me, when I was doing this, if someone's on a call, I'm not. There's no need to bother them.
Yeah.
Right? If I just kind of read the room, that's just something you do. But also, like, I eventually, for me, like approaching girls was almost like a secondary step in dating. If I was at a coffee shop and I saw a girl just like on her computer and no headphones, whatever, just kind of read the room, I would go up and say hi. Like,
Okay.
and most of the time it worked out pretty well. Like, worst case scenario, they have a boyfriend or they're not interested, totally fine. But I would always get exchange information because, like, it's on Instagram. I think that's also the big over dating apps. Instagram's a way better dating app. Um, Especially if like you do. I like your Instagram a lot because your profile is very nice and it's just like very aesthetic to you, which is amazing. I don't use my own personal Instagram anymore. I focus on Effortless, but what you do is you post stories of stuff you do, and that's like it's really inviting. You really want to, like, let's say you meet someone at a coffee shop. Maybe she's nervous of like, oh, this guy's attractive. Like, I don't want to like come off too easy or whatever, and that's an absolutely valid thing girls have to think about, right?
Yeah.
Their safety. But you exchange Instagrams, they follow each other, whatever. And this is like a pro tip. You have a cool Instagram. You post cool, trendy stuff. You go, you went to the equipment room. You go to different places. You're trying on these new cowboy boots, whatever. She's gonna think, oh my God, that's my favorite store. She's gonna reply to your story. You kind of do the same thing back. It's like flirting. That's this kind of like the digital flirting.
You're doing like breadcrumbs to like a conversation upon.
Exactly. And then if it goes well, like you can tell when someone's replying to your story, liking your story is different. Almost think like a girl in that regard. Like, oh, this person's showing interest. You can almost like, hey, I'm doing this thing. You should join. I always like to do kind of a group thing and
Yeah.
where she feels welcome. It's not just me and her, no pressure.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's worked a lot. And I feel like there's a lot of like stigma around like, oh, sliding the DMs. We're not sliding the DMs here.
Yeah.
You've already approached this person, but then you took a back step and just lived your own life.
Yeah.
And she showed interest. And you can reply to some stories and stuff like that and see how it goes. But at the end of the day, it is a numbers game.
Yeah.
So don't like get hung up on one person. Man,
Yeah.
go.
My biggest fear with the Instagram thing is when I do, and I've done this on dating apps, is usually like I'd rather trade Instagrams than numbers.
Yeah.
Oftentimes because I don't know, weirdly enough, I feel like it's more personal to trade your number.
Yeah.
And so I'm always okay trading Instagram because then we can also kind of get an idea of who we are as a person. You can kind of see a little bit of that person through their Instagram. But the thing I've come across too is with my Instagram, because I am so active on it, I don't have any other social media. So I just have Instagram and I put all my energy into that, like creatively, passionately, like everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like a double, or it's like there's two sides to the coin where on one end, like you said, it's nice because they get to know me and they get to see how like involved I am, like to show more of myself on there, which is great. But the other side is sometimes they can think like, oh, he's like really on Instagram, or like he's got like this many followers, like he looks like he's like really into whatever this or that. And I've come across that, and that's also been kind of like I guess a concern for me is like I worry that sharing my Instagram gives this impression that like that's all I care about, or like this is my thing or something.
Okay.
And so I'm curious, like, if you've come across that or how you approach stuff like that. Then does that just mean that's just not something I should be with, or
So your Instagram, yeah, it's like kind of overthinking, but it's like if that's your stuff, like you don't have an additional personal account or whatever, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
if someone like calls you out on that, next.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Like, I think fundamentally, I think it comes down to mindset with a lot of stuff. I know this is kind of going like deeper, but it's like I think a lot of people just overthink things a little bit. And if you don't, if someone calls you out on that for some weird fucking reason, like next,
It's not your type.
you need to have some options.
Yeah.
At least you need to have the mindset to where you have options. And the caveat is dating apps.
Yeah.
The problem with dating apps is people feel like they have options when they really don't.
Yeah.
So women are not automatically just being like an average woman. They will have in society more status than a guy that's good looking, has a big job, whatever. Automatically.
Yeah.
People will automatically just like, she'll get more from society than a guy like that. So it's like, okay, great. So if you have an Instagram you're following, it's something you're proud of, and a person calls you out on that, just move on.
Yeah.
You need to kind of believe, or just like have the proof for yourself of like, okay,
Yeah.
you're if you want to date intentionally, you have to date.
Yeah.
You have to you date a few people, you date multiple people at once, being transparent, and like, this is what I like about this person, this is what I don't like about this person. And then you almost know what to look for in your final partner.
Yeah.
I know this is kind of like a curving tangent, but it's like, it comes down to like just being comfortable in yourself.
Yeah.
And having options.
Right.
And when people call you out on that, it's just their own insecurity. And you don't need to share anything negative with them. You just, okay, no thanks.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, when it comes to the whole options aspect of it, I think that's another big detractor of online dating is, I think, in our current state of dating, when people go on a bad date, or let's say you go on the first date, it's great, second date is okay,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes you want to give the third date a chance to kind of verify how you're feeling or what it really is. But oftentimes people will just drop it at the second date because they're like, oh, there's like 5 other people I can go on a date with.
Yeah.
That's also been another big issue with that. So with your clients, like, how do you approach first date, second date, third date? Like do they talk about that with you? Do they go through those stages? Like, let's say the second date doesn't work out. How do you approach it with them?
That's a great question. Yeah. So I go through all this stuff with them. So it's like, for clients, I mean, I'd say most people, if you can get a first date, amazing, right?
Yeah.
You did something right. Yeah, then you have to ask yourself, okay, did I get a second date? If not, why not, right? So it's like reverse engineering. You probably did something weird, or if something happened to her, or you don't know what the other person's going through, and that's fine. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age where people don't really give a lot of closure.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
So that's where you need to have the mentality of like just moving on, right?
Yeah.
You just got to be living your life, live an interesting life to where like people want to join you rather than you just looking for someone.
Attached or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, when it comes down to my clients asking, I wanted this great date, second date, she was so cool, but like I texted her and she ghosted me.
Yeah, ghosting. That's kind of what I was going to get to. How do you handle those kind of situations?
Ghosting is essentially just to me is a byproduct of not really connecting well enough, and I feel like honestly can be a blessing. When you're hitting the third date mark, for most people, it's pretty important stage. It's like where a lot of like the personal stuff comes up, and maybe you were just talking the entire time, right? Like kind of audit what you did, and maybe she saw something that was like, hey, I don't want to do this. You feel free to ask this person, because like that's okay. Who cares? But I'm a bit old school in this mentality. It's like, if you're not getting the third date, just move on.
Yeah.
If you're getting ghosted, move on. And this is kind of like, I call it the fuckboy mentality here. It's like, if you have the person on Instagram, I feel like you know where I'm going here. If you have a cool life, you're going on doing, not even just going, you don't need Instagram on your dates, but like, if you're doing cool, you go into I went to the gun range with a few of my female friends and my girlfriend and a few friends. It was a great experience. I had videos and stuff, and it's like, let's say you went on a few dates with this girl, and she's like, who are these other girls that he's hanging out with? And it's almost like it's biology for most women and men to feel jealous.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that off that one time, they're just going to like, so if you kind of live that lifestyle to where that is a thing, people are going to want to hang out with you, right? They're going to know more about you. They're going to feel like, damn, I want to hang out with Hamza. What the hell?
Yeah.
Maybe I should hit him up. So like, it's never out of the picture. Again, that's why I call it the fuckboy mentality. It's like you're kind of playing the game a bit. But I always just, when it comes to dating and going on dates, just do a post-game analysis.
Yeah.
Go home from the date. Everybody's always giddy. They're like, oh, it's such a great time. Ask yourself, like, take a second, take a beat. How was she on the date? You know, sometimes it can be very difficult to like disengage from like your giddy mindset. Oh my God,
Yeah.
go on another date. But one little hack I like to do on the second or third dates is like, you know, if she says, oh, my grandma ran a bakery and it was like my core memory of my childhood. That's why I love sweets, desserts. And, you know, like, no way, that's so awesome. And thank you for sharing that. So there's this new place I found on East 6 that has the best Danishes I've ever had. And I die every time I eat them. Like, we'll definitely go there. Let's go next Wednesday. Right? I'll kind of like put in the idea of the seed of another date. She's like, read how she says, like, goes with that. If she's like, yeah, maybe, yeah, anyways. Like,
Okay.
Right? Like, kind of read the room there. But she's like, oh, that would be so awesome. I love Danishes.
Yeah.
Right? I just feel like connect a little bit more on the dates. And one thing I keep hearing over and over, especially in all the interviews I do, is like, guys just talk the entire time. They never let me talk. Like, they tell me about their job, blah, blah, blah. Like, but I'm there for an hour and I say 4 words.
Yeah. That's the exact opposite issue with me is when I go on dates. It's kind of like
You're the opposite. Okay.
interview. I mean, it's like this podcast, right? Like I like have so many questions, but it is because I'm genuinely interested in the person, and I almost want to get to know as much as I can, and I've been trying to find the balance between asking questions and also like giving them kind of space to ask me a question back. But I have heard that a lot of the girls in those dates or later on would be like, you know, that's amazing or that's crazy because like usually on dates I'm used to like talking, right?
Yeah.
It is a common issue that I've definitely come across, and it's surprising to me because you would think as a guy you would want to know more about the girl or like find out more whether she aligns with you, which is my kind of like whole goal with it.
I have a theory, actually. I feel like guys are listening to too many damn podcasts. Yeah. And they get in a flow and they just don't stop talking.
Yeah.
They just pretend they're like talking to Joe Rogan or something.
Yeah. I could totally see that. I think like the other thing is the ego. I think dating has been a really big test of the ego and kind of learning to put that aside. And I think that's why also the questions come up a lot more. I think this podcast has helped in terms of like knowing how to listen better and know how to bring conversations back to whatever the subject matter is. So, I mean, in a way, this podcast has been like tremendous in building that skill.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I think it is super important, especially on the first date, to like ask as many questions as you can and find out as much as you can about this person, because that can establish whether that's second date worth it. Because you could go on that second date and like, I don't know. I just feel like it's not to say it's a waste of time, but it's like you could have been meeting the next person or the next potential partner. So I'm trying to be a little bit more conscientious about that. But when it comes to your clients, what's a common issue that you seem to come across with men when it comes to like the first meeting you have with them? Like, what is a big roadblock or something that's affecting them in terms of meeting women or going on successful dates?
Yeah. So I would say I have about like 2 types of clients realistically. One type of client are the guys that, you know, don't really have much of a dating history or life in general. Maybe because they're entrepreneurs, they've only been grinding. They want to, you know, I don't know, they might be immigrants, never really focused on dating because they couldn't, because their parents or lifestyle.
Yeah.
But they're very high performers, like they're great operators, and they never really thought about dating. But maybe they're at a certain age where they feel, you know, I want a wife, right? And that's a big majority of my clients. And then I have clients that are, I call them like, why are you here? Like I call them the why are you here clients. Because I'm like, why do you need my help? It's like, I'm partially joking, but I'm like, they're good looking. They to me, they're like, they seem to have everything together. They have a good job, run a company, whatever. But they're like, I just want accountability. I feel like I go on dates, dating apps, I get matches, but like, there's nothing there. There's no substance. And that's where like, I feel the art of conversation, like I mentioned before, is huge. And I think it's a dying art. And I really help the accountability or why are you here clients with that. Kind of going off what you just said. It's like when you go on dates, it's not just asking questions, like it's interview mode, right? It's like if you were saying something, you know, we connected, one of the things we connected on is like you're a Manchester United fan, or we just talking about soccer, right? Yeah. I think I don't know how I came about you liking soccer, but I was like, no way, what's your team? right? So like imagine we're just starting a conversation. Conversations go up and down, sideways and backwards, right? So it's like, oh, Manchester United, no way, right? Oh, I have this jersey, this Ronaldo, right? So it's like, that's how conversations go. There's no
Trying to find like a commonality or something.
correct. There's no linearity, and there shouldn't be a linearity, or else then it's like a job interview, right? And if something hits, right? Like you're a big fan of the Bear, as am I. You met a few of the people, right? And I know we talked about that for like 30 minutes. I was like, no fucking way, no way. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
How were they, right? It's almost like you dig deeper into a conversation, and that's where connection really happens, and that's what girls want. They don't need to be talking about 10 different things. Oh, my family's from here, my job, my dog.
Yeah.
If you can get deeper into 1-2 things that are really meaningful for them, like especially pets. If a girl has a dog, oh my gosh, it's over. Like it's like if you have a dog too, it's like a great way to connect.
Yeah.
Oh, my dog is a Burmese this. I have a golden retriever. Oh, I take him to this dog park, this food. And then obviously like I wouldn't spend the entire time on just like dog food, but like find something else, right? Like something that they're passionate about. Like I feel like that's also where the art of comedy. It's almost like like Bruce Lee says, it's like will be like water.
Yeah. Like flow.
Correct.
Okay.
So it takes practice. You might need to go on a few bad dates.
Yeah.
To get one good date. You know.
Okay. That's a good way to put it. So I wanted to ask about your social media approach, right? So you said you got rid of your personal account and you're focusing on this. So in terms of that, what is your goal with doing that online? Like what was your approach initially, and like where do you see that kind of going future with your social media account?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with my content, I really so it started off with like I was doing all this stuff for free before I even turned it into a business with friends of friends and stuff like that. And I've kind of like for the last year or two, I've been really struggling with like what am I really passionate about, especially because I was working 9 to 5 and I was like, I don't like doing this. And then I figured out like what is one thing that just like I really love doing regardless of how I feel. I was like just doing the hard things. I've always felt better about myself, and I was like, how can I put that in content? But then a few friends told me like you should be doing like dating stuff for a living, because like they were telling me I got the external validation of people plenty of people are like, you should do this for a living. I think you would be great. So that's kind of where my content started, because I was like, I still talk to everybody. I would always challenge myself every day, like, oh, that's a pretty girl. And I would be with a friend. I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to her for him.
Yeah.
Right. Be like a great wingman. I would just do it for fun, because I'm just like, it's hard.
Yeah.
And no one wants to do it, but like, I'll do it. I want to see my friends succeed.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where the content started, like doing the interviews. I was like, I would just ask people these questions. And I'm like, man, there's just like a camera here.
Yeah.
That's literally where it started.
Okay.
But with my content, it's like the base model, like I guess the baseline of my content is like, I just want people to get more comfortable doing the hard thing, especially dating. Like people have personal chefs, personal trainers, personal, like, I don't know, like cleaners, everything.
Yeah.
And so they'll like delegate everything. They'll spend time and money and effort on, building their business, body, right, their kitchen, whatever, the meals. But they won't do the same thing for the person that they want to spend the rest of their life with. The relationship that arguably dictates your entire life.
Yeah. The
mother of your kids, right? So it's like, why? So it was kind of on a journey to do that. And that's kind of where it led me to the interview space. I'm like, I can ask people these questions.
Yeah.
But with my content, I really want to take it to a level where it's like, I mean, interviews are great. It's great, but there's only so many questions I feel like I can ask. But it's like, I'm now challenging myself to like, okay, people love hearing other people, but I feel like people also want to hear from me.
Yeah.
How can I add my personality into my content? In the long term, I really want to turn it into a brand that's synonymous with, oh, that's Shawn. He's the dating coach that has like a system, right? It's like, it's really hard to articulate it sometimes, because it's like everybody's personal.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, the way I would tell you something might be very different than someone else.
Yeah.
So it's like, but most people's problems are pretty similar.
Yeah.
But down the line, I definitely want to build into a self-development brand rather than just like dating, because to me, truly, dating is just a byproduct of having a great life.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing because when you said the system, I just thought of the dentist system from Always Sunny.
Oh, yeah. No, like, I love stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, you tell that to a guy that's really good looking and, whatever, good shape and all this stuff, it will work for him.
Yeah.
tell it to a guy that's like, again, the Verizon 5'6" guy that we have as a meme in this in this episode might not work as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
That's
it's like,
fair.
and it's different.
Yeah. So welcome to Hanging Out with Hamza. Today I have a special guest on that I met through Desnudo, which was the last episode. If you guys listen to that one, I highly recommend it. So Shawn is a dating coach, and he is somebody that I really think I've learned a lot from in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it up on to him and just kind of give you guys a better understanding through his word of mouth.
Yeah. Thanks, Hamza. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you worded it best. So I'm dating coach for men, specifically, say, introverted men in Austin and anywhere virtually. But the way I kind of frame what I do is everybody has a delegation of their life, right? They have a personal assistant, personal chef, a dietitian, or fitness instructor, right? They'll have a personal stylist. But those are all important. Those are all awesome things. But when it comes to dating or finding the person, the mother of your children in the future, there's no kind of guidance for that. There's no kind of like playbook. There's no coaching for that, right?
Yeah.
But that's where I really wanted to put my stake in the ground and say, no, I think this is just, if not more, definitely more important than like having personal, having that as a additional kind of accountability factor for yourself.
Okay.
To teach people.
Cool. In terms of how you originally came into this, I know you did mention that your girlfriend was a big contributing factor to this, so I did want to kind of shout her out through you and kind of go over that story you told me about, like how it originated with that, and also just like how important it was to you to find somebody in that realm, because I'm sure what you do for a living can make certain girls insecure or feel kind of weird about it because it's a certain skill set or superpower that could be concerning. So do you mind kind of enlightening me more and the listeners about that whole experience with your girlfriend?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with how I met her. I feel like that would give really good context. I met her doing everything I'm preaching.
Okay.
So
What's her name?
Dakota.
Okay.
So the story is pretty simple. I don't drink. Mostly because I see it as kind of like a handicap and didn't want to rely on alcohol down the line. So this was in Dallas, Texas, double-story bar called Happiest Hour. I love that place. And I walked in, went upstairs. I was like, oh, let me scope, look around. I saw her. I was like, damn. If I go up to her now, I'm ruining my shot because I had no practice. Like wasn't warmed up, so to speak. I was like, if I go now, screw it up, I'm screwed. You lose that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And again, practicing when I preach, I started mingling with people. I would like make friends. Hey, come meet my sister. Come meet my friend. Like I just like memed everybody. I just like, and that's like funny. People love that. They're like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And I'm a huge advocate of that. Like you can drop me in any city, I can make friends.
Okay.
So that's kind of the art of the whole thing. So then after an hour or so, I was like, okay, hopefully she's still here. And I see her. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, let's go. And I was with my roommate, who I coached. Shout out Chris, my old roommate. I coached to be a wingman. At first, my God, he would run away from every conversation. I was like, no, come on, dude, I need you to be a wingman. So I told him how to, like, basically your job is to communicate with everybody else in the group.
Yeah.
Because the girls are never alone. It's a whole thing. I can go on a whole tangent about this, but I'm not going to. So I was going up, walking up, and then I see her with like 6 people. How am I gonna navigate this? Luckily I had Chris, and I was like, you always got to address the leader of the group, right? That's like, to address the group, you have to make friends with everybody. So I had to like mingle with everybody, build their trust before talking to Dakota. And then I got Chris to talk about, luckily I think they connected. They're both from Ohio, and then they started talking. So I got to talk to Dakota one-on-one. I told her she looked like Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones. And I think she still does, like very much so, besides the red hair.
Yeah.
And she luckily understood the joke, thank God. Or else she's like, what the hell is this crazy guy talking about?
Yeah.
I had to and it was hard. We were talking for like 2.5 hours. I had to battle off other guys. I had to battle off her friends pulling her away. She went to get a drink and, you be respectful, let her do her thing. And I was like, man, she's probably gone. But I got a bit lucky. She came back. So that was like a sign of interest of her to me. And I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And, I didn't want to push anything. I was like, I don't think anything's going to happen tonight, right? Just being the guy. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. Let me ask her out. I asked her out, set up a date for the next day. It almost didn't happen. So her roommate was the one that made it happen. They were both, and she was telling me this. She's like, we almost didn't date. She was the next day hungover. I was planned for dinner, and she was like, I don't think I'm gonna go. I barely remember the guy. Hurt me. But her roommate was like, magic words. It's just free dinner.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it was right. And she showed up on the day. It was Thai food, and rest is history.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but the most important thing with this is like, I guess kind of I was in that phase where I was dating a lot of people at the time. I was dating a few other people, and then I had Dakota to like the, I don't know, Rolodex, so to speak. No, I don't like Rolodex.
Okay.
But what that taught me, and I always recommend people to like do this, right? Try to see if you can like talk to multiple people. If you can, I definitely recommend being very transparent, like courting multiple people at once, because it allows you to see what you like, what you don't like in a person. And my number one rule for having a girlfriend, number one rule I recommend to anybody is like, make sure your friends think she's cooler than you. Yeah. And I mean that in like a lot of ways, not just like she can hang with the boys. Like, she's funny. She knows how to, like, she's accepting of, if you like playing video games late into the night, she's accepting of that and all that stuff. So it's like, it's a big part of that. Yeah. So I was able to nitpick based off like just dating a lot of people and understanding what I liked and didn't like. And the number one thing was like, I needed a nurturing person. Yeah. Because I'm a very like type A, social, like, and she's not as much.
Something that just compliments you in a way.
Correct. I don't need someone that's like me, because I would butt heads. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just my experience. Yeah. But I wanted someone that's like supplements my life, that's very supportive. And she knew if I was going to date someone, it was going to be the mother of my children, or else like I'm giving up this whole world of dating, seeing multiple women. And it was great. It was awesome to date all these people. But then, I did everything so intensely for like a short period of time, doing all of this so like to the extreme. Yeah. So it was very exhausting. And I kind of saw like the side of like being a fuckboy and all this stuff. Yeah. If you want to call it that. And it's rough. It's like there's normally an end goal. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh great, you have sex. Yeah. The high wears off. Yeah. And again, that's a whole nother thing. But like, she's very supportive. And one of my favorite things about her is like anytime any of our friends struggle, she's always like throwing me like, hey, go. Shawn's the greatest wingman ever. And one thing I will say is I'm a great wingman. Yeah. So like she's always like part of the game, right? And she's always like very supportive of that. So it's like I don't have to ask her or tell her, ask for permission.
That's awesome.
So that for me was like green flag, green flag, green flag, yeah. Green flag. Yeah.
Okay. Well, shout out Dakota, and yeah, I think she's a big part of why you're here too. So and I think it's a good lesson, even just on my end, or anybody that you are teaching is like a good example of who you want to be with that compliments you in that regard. I think that's something that you taught me when we last spoke about it. Is I kind of asked you, I was like, I've been going on these dates, and I think my biggest thing is struggling to find that connection, or like what exactly I'm searching for. And I think besides obviously that like strong attraction physically, what is it specifically that can show that this is the one? And I think that complimenting thing makes a lot of sense, because I am a very picky person, and I feel like I have a very interesting personality when it comes to like obsessions and passions and things. And it's tough when you have somebody that doesn't understand why I love Spider-Man or movies or not. So it is cool to learn that from you in that regard. Any like examples of?
I'll talk about this. I feel like this is an important part of it. I mean, do it really well. Like the whole red pill stuff. I have some thoughts on that. Yeah. So, do you know what that is? Like red pill? No. So there's kind of like two sides. Like I know there's like the incel stuff. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, like girls just hate them.
Yeah, it's like they have few bad experiences with women, and they just hate women.
Involuntarily celibate.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also the red pill, where it's like very like testosterone based, or like treat women like shit and all this stuff. And I'm like,
the Andrew Tates of the world.
Yeah, Andrew Tates and all that stuff. And so like words of warning essentially, right? So it's like, don't get me wrong, like I spent thousands and thousands of dollars and years, like I wouldn't say like involved in it, but like with pickup or artistry and stuff, because that's almost where I learned a lot of like the basics.
Right, you did your like bachelor's degree.
Yeah, correct. I went to Vegas. I went to the strip club, learned how to like talk, like, do all, like, pool strippers and all. I did all of the really crazy shit. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure people know that. Yeah.
Slums.
Yeah. And it was great. It's cool, but it's fucking, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's like toxic. And it's like, I didn't want to lead my life like this,
Yeah.
especially because, like, I wanted to be a normal person. I wanted to have kids and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing I did take out of it, and the only thing I'll give kind of red pill credit for, is like understanding. It's like having the mindset. It's like people think like, oh, you got to treat women a certain way. It's like most guys let women treat them a certain way, so they get in their feels and their emotions. Like, oh, this person treated me bad. But if you really peel the onion back a bit, it's, you don't really have any options. You don't have the life that's a girl is like, wow, this guy's really cool. Like, you don't have any hobbies. You don't really have any friends. So I'm like, that's why I really push building a social life, right? Like, if you're new to the city, you're just like, you're introverted, start small, right? Don't worry about like, I need a girlfriend. Calm down, take a beat, learn how to socialize with anybody, anywhere.
Yeah.
That's, it's not really red pill, but they just skyrocketed that and took it to the moon. But it's like, yeah, if you want someone that's super fit, super hot, whatever, that's like a runner, all this stuff, like, look at yourself and ask yourself, like, would this person want me?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, am I fit?
And do you have attributes that are attractive to?
Correct? It's like, okay, you love League of Legends. Amazing.
Yeah.
Now ask yourself, from your experience, do you have any experience with a girl that's, the typical basic white girl, let's just say, if you have female friends that are like that, would they accept you for liking League of Legends?
Yeah.
Or would you be more interested in a girl who loves League of Legends as well, right? Like, who would be supportive of that?
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself the hard questions.
Okay.
And then you really set a new reality for yourself. So that's kind of the one thing I'll take from Red Pill and be like, this is good.
Okay. This is an off-beat question, but it does relate to everything. So let me put myself in a position. Let's say this is our first meeting. You're my dating coach, right? How does the initial meeting process go? And I have a follow-up for this. This is unrelated, but kind of explain to me how you begin your initial session, what you do, and how that develops into like, an ongoing client.
So first and foremost, I do like do an interview, Zoom interview, and make sure you're not a weird person or like a woman hater, right? Exactly. And you can tell off the bat, right? By the way, I ask pretty deep questions off the bat because I'm not wasting my time and your time.
Yeah.
And then if I realize your problems are normal, great, we can have a chat. And to be honest, like, I want to make sure this person I'm working with is comfortable financially. Not that I charge a lot or anything right now, but it's like, I want to make sure like you're really focused on this and you really want it. You're willing to put in the time, because regardless, like, if you reach out to me, it's definitely a pain point, right? First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that. Correct. And I want to acknowledge that as well. So pre-interview, and then I kind of I do have like a questionnaire, and that's where I ask, like, what do you envision your life to look like? What type of girl do you want, right? Not just like physically. It's like, where would you want to hang out with her on a Saturday morning? That's a great question I asked on an interview. That's like, where would you want your future wife or girlfriend to be hanging out on a Saturday morning, right? So it's a great way to kind of visualize, like, is that still waking up late in the morning, right? Is that a run club? Is that at yoga? Or is that at like having coffee on the porch, right? Different stuff like that. So I actually asked them to put a few pictures, like, just paint up a collage for me, like, give me a Pinterest board almost.
Of that type of woman?
Of like the dating life they want, right? Like in 5 years or whatever.
Okay.
So this is like a 10-question questionnaire to get to know them.
Yeah.
And then from there, if they treat me like I feel like this person is willing to put in the time.
Yeah.
If you're not able, if you give one-word answers,
let's talk about it.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
It's my choice there. So like from there, we meet, and if it's in person, my job is to really break down what your goals are. Okay. So again, that's where it comes down to. It's like there's no template. So I'm going to understand your needs based off what you've given me in our first conversation of like, hey, I don't have a problem with dating apps, but like, I just don't connect with people. I want to talk to people in person. I need just someone there to help me. Like, cool, no problem. So we'll go out and about, usually during the daytime, and really make them feel comfortable just being social.
Yeah.
Not like needing anything from anybody. And then some people are like, you know what? I love going to bars. I just like enjoying it because I go with my friends, but I'm too scared to talk to girls.
Yeah.
And like, this is where the fun, it's kind of fun going out, and like I guess called gaming with them. But I'll teach them like show me what first week. Show me what you do. Just show me yourself in this habitat, and then I kind of like audit, right? I do a life audit essentially, and then I'm like, okay, now I know what to help you with.
Okay.
So I'll do it with all my clients. That's usually a baseline, and then I'll kind of like, okay, you're actually a really confident guy. You love talking about World of Warcraft, and I'll kind of make exercises. Two of my favorite exercises I recommend everybody to try to do this just for fun. You can only talk about your passion. For let's say you go out to the bars or whatever or somewhere one night, you can only talk about your passion, and you pick one passion, not 10, right? I keep saying World of Warcraft. Let's just say World of Warcraft. Only talk about World of Warcraft. Relate everything this girl says to World of Warcraft, because it's not what you're saying, it's a spark in your eye that's like, you want with other areas of conversation that you want to build. So it's like, notice how you talk and how the people react so you can like gauge. And then that's one exercise. Second exercise is pretend you either don't speak English or don't speak at all. So I think I told you about this.
Yeah,
Pull out your phone.
Yeah.
I love doing this. I still do this like to this day sometimes.
Yeah.
And like when Dakota's not there, and she'll come back and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, pretend I'm doing things." She's like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah.
But it's so funny because like if you can get away with that, it'll show you like it's okay to be fun. Like people would go into social situations or bars or whatever, and they're like so uptight, and they're like, "Oh, I just gotta hold my drink." And no, if someone comes up to you with a phone, what drink is that? Right? And you're like, what the hell? Imagine just like you're just thrown off the rails. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
This person's
Are
funny.
you intentionally pretending like you either don't speak the language or you're mute, or are you just like not able to talk loud in there? Like, what's like the kind of premise you're setting for the person?
The premise is you pick one. It's like either you can pretend like you speak whatever language you want and you're just typing it. So like if you want to like mess with them later, if you have a really good connection somehow, which actually ends up happening a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like this person's just so interested in this and they're like, I'm just fucking there speaking English. And they're like, what the fuck? Right? And it's like,
I'm surprised it doesn't go the other way where people get like, I don't know.
Well, why would they? Because now they're like, oh my God, I get to know this person on like a totally different like plane.
Yeah.
Of
you're changing the whole communication style and like
correct.
Establishing this body language and all so many other things involved.
You're not worried about so it takes away like, oh, what do I say? It's like type it in my phone. Like, it in my phone. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then what was the other thing?
So it's like those are two exercises I would just kind of like go and practice. And then this is just like a baseline I do for everybody because it allows them to see that it's not that serious.
Yeah.
And allows them to take my fear of talking and like saying the wrong thing. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
You have to, it's all your body language. It's, you can, if I'm from Macedonia and I was speaking English, like you're just making that up.
Yeah.
You can like, I don't know, just like play around like and spin her and just be like, I don't know. You can say something in Macedonian, she'll be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it's just like you connect on a different like playing field.
Gotcha.
Where everybody else is like, can I buy your drink?
Yeah. You kind of stood out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And things can go well.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And then is there like a graduation point for like these clients that you have? Obviously, is it just that they get into a relationship, or like at what point are you like, okay, you went from Jedi to master?
Yeah. I think that's up to them.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, like I have a client, one of my earliest client that I actually don't really call him a client because I've known him before I started all this, but he's like, no, I was your first client.
Is that the guy I met?
No, a different guy. So he has a kid now.
Yeah.
He's married, and he's like, I wouldn't have done any of this without you.
Oh wow.
So like, and he's like, he gave me a testimonial, and I was like, you don't have to do this, man. He's like, it's not official, but he's like, dude, I was your first client. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm at a point where like, oh, I met this girl. I'm like able to like talk to anybody, man.
Right,
like, thank you so much.
There now.
And they're the ones who tell me like, hey, man, like, I've learned so much from you.
So it's like therapy, like when you're like, oh, I'm in a good place now, or
correct.
Maybe I'll reach out to you later.
Yeah, and that's
you can have ongoing things if you need to.
I do have an ongoing client right now where it's like, it's just kind of continuous, where they're just busy and they're like, I'm not gonna find a wife in 6 weeks or like a girlfriend in 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it's stuff like that.
Cool. At what point do you feel like you ever dismiss a client, or are there any times when you're like, hey, this isn't like working or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I have had a few clients, or I would call them clients, prospects,
Yeah.
right? That were not right fit. I could tell off the bat they were like, oh, specific verbatim. One of them said like, I want to take charge of women. I'm like,
Mm,
what does that mean? Like maybe you're just like phrasing it wrong. They're like, no, like my ex girlfriend dumped me and it's really bad, and I want to show them that I'm like.
yeah.
So I just got the wrong vibe.
Gotcha.
And that's the beauty of running your own
Yeah.
business. So it's like,
I mean, it's kind of like being done. It's like I can dismiss patients in the same way, like if they don't align with like your
correct,
goals, and you just
correct.
dismiss them. Okay.
Yeah. And then I try to be as transparent as possible. I'm like, hey, like, just because I had one specific situation where someone was, we signed like the agreement, whatever. And then the first week I set this person up on 2 dates,
Yeah.
based off, interest. And they're like, I didn't like either of those people. I don't want to do this anymore. And like, you work with a coach.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no promise of like I'm not a matchmaker. I'm not gonna find you the perfect girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Finding like a guideline.
Yeah. So it's like, I empathize with this person. I gave them the refund and everything, but it's like if you have this really strict timeline of like this, it might not be the right thing for you.
Okay. All right. Shawn, I just want to say thanks for coming on here. This has been a great podcast.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure getting to know you and even just have this friendship outside of this podcast with you.
100%.
Looking forward to hearing about more of your wisdoms about dating, and I definitely need it too. So yeah, if you guys are listening, if you guys want to reach out to Shawn, I'm going to leave his socials in the profile, but I will pass it to Shawn to just tell you how you can reach him if you are okay sharing that.
Yeah. Instagram would definitely be the best way. Effortless Dating by Shawn. And my link to my website is on there as well. If you want to you can have a free consultation call just to chat, and just DM me if you have any questions about just dating in general. I love talking to people about it. It's just, I make a lot of friends that way.
Yeah.
So
This goes for guys and girls too. I
Yeah.
feel like Shawn's, he can help on both ends. And as you can see on his Instagram, he does interviews with both men and women. So yeah, follow him, follow his stuff. And thanks for listening, hanging out with Hamza. Thanks, Shawn. Take care.